俺が化け物？違う。俺は悪魔だ。
ほら、あんたと一緒でしょ。なんかオラと違うな。ひょろひょろっとして弱そうじゃないか。そりゃだってしょうがないわよ。私女の子だもん。お前女か。田舎もん。あんた女の子見たことないの？ちっちゃんの他に人間見たの初めてだ。尻尾もないんだな、女は。
Dragon Ball would get its first feature film on December 20th, 1986 at the Toei Manga Matsuri Film Festival, which itself was a long-running anime film festival that basically highlighted popular anime series at the time. Dragon Ball would premiere alongside two other popular anime series, Kinnikuman and Gegege no Kitaro Gekitotsu, which, interesting tidbit, Masako Nozawa, legendary voice actor for Goku, voiced the titular character of this series in the original 1968 version. Just kind of interesting. Each film was relatively short, runtime about 50 minutes, and they would actually play all three of them back to back. So kids at the time would be going to watch 3 movies back to back. Most Dragon Ball films are essentially retellings of whichever story arc was happening at the time in the anime. The first film was no different, as it was a retelling of the Pilaf story arc. The antagonists of the film were changed to King Gurume's, Pasta, and Vongo. All of these characters were designed by Toriyama himself, and of course all the names are puns on food. Gurume's is gourmet, pasta is pasta, and Vongo is vongole, which is an Italian dish, a clam pasta dish basically. Toriyama really loved his food puns. So, one other character that's introduced that's quite important is this little girl named Pansy. This girl would basically is like the anchor to this film. Like the film cannot exist without her. Whereas in the manga, and the anime, Goku's journey gradually has him encounter all of the characters that become like the core group of friends. It's this girl and her existence that is what takes Goku from A to B to C. That basically is how we get all the characters a little bit, how do you say, like meeting more quickly than they would have in the original version. So I do like that for such a short runtime, this girl's story and her village's drama, I guess you could say, is what helps bring all these characters together much quicker. And I think it works great. Now, aside from Toriyama's involvement, obviously we have a whole animation studio here, and a lot of the actual designs of other characters, like the actual physical designs of them, were created by legendary animator Minoru Maeda, who was responsible for adapting both Slump and Dragon Ball into anime. So this person is, if you guys love Dragon Ball anime, this is the person you have to thank for taking those manga designs by Toriyama and making them look the way they looked in the anime. He actually oversaw everything all the way up until Super 13, the Android 13 movie, which when we get there, we'll talk about what happened. But anyway, he got a lot of his inspiration for the machines and the vehicles in this movie from Toriyama's designs. This is from his own mouth, that he used a lot of the designs from Slump and Dragon Ball to inspire his own vehicle designs, which I think is really awesome. He also kind of chimed in on the whole, I guess, gourmet foods, like why everybody has food names in this. And that in the 1980s in Japan, they were going through like this gourmet phase where like a lot of the TV shows and stuff was all about gourmet foods. It was just like kind of like a boom at the time was gourmet food. So he feels that that's possibly what inspired Toriyama to put all these food puns in there in the 1980s. Like it was just part of what was happening in the culture. Believe it or not, the film was actually titled Dragon Ball upon its initial release. Not Dragon Ball the movie, Dragon Ball, that was it. It wouldn't get like I guess you could say like a subtitle until afterwards, and in Japan and America both different. In Japan it's actually called Shenron no Densetsu, basically the legend of Shenron. Then overseas, of course, they get it the Curse of the Blood Rubies. The film would actually get its US release all the way back in 1989, and I'm sure everybody's going, what? I never heard of this movie back then. Dragon Ball had a really weird history. I don't want to get too off track. Basically, Dragon Ball was constantly being, tried out overseas. And it was just always having difficulties finding an audience, all the way back in 1989, 1990, even before I first heard of Dragon Ball. And it would be like shown in very minimal places. Nobody would watch it. So it would be moved on after a few years to another company. They would try it. It was constantly being bounced around with different dubs and just not finding a home until like the mid late 90s. Everybody knows about like, the Ocean dub. And then finally in the early 2000s, I believe when Funimation finally got the, everything on, Dragon Ball finally caught on, I guess you could say. But back then in 1989, they tried the movie out. It was heavily edited, which probably did not help it. All the violence was cut out. Any of the, a lot of the dirty jokes, of course, would be cut out. But basically the film was heavily edited. Names were changed. The characters didn't even have the same names. So the film it was at a time where Japanese anime I think Western, not audiences, but Western studios didn't know how to put it out there for the audiences. Nowadays we realize audiences just want it the way it is. But back then, being so different from Western animation, they're like, what do we do with this? Should we just put it on TV? But then, you have studio executives saying, that's not really appropriate. So it was kind of just a tricky situation back then. And therefore anime had a rough start overseas. In 1995, it actually did find a VHS home video release in America. But again, like a lot of people just didn't even know it existed. It just was still struggling to find an audience. It wouldn't get a proper release until about 2010 when Funimation bought the rights from Lionsgate, who had purchased it over a decade ago actually. So therefore the film was just like in limbo for the longest time, even when Funimation was having such great success adapting Dragon Ball in English. This one movie was just like, for a long time, just not being brought overseas. But I, again, also feel that the original Dragon Ball, I'm talking about like, when they're all kids, was a slower start in America and other countries. Whereas, Dragon Ball Z was what everybody knew. So eventually by, the 2010s, that's when it got its, DVD release. And then it felt like most Western audiences finally were introduced to this original Dragon Ball movie. In this film, both the opening and ending credits use the same songs, Makufushigi Adventure and Romantic Agerio. Same song, same video animation. One last interesting thing I want to talk about with production before we move into the actual story is this film was the first time that it was shown that the sky turns dark when you summon a dragon. I kid you not. Toriyama did not originally have that in the manga. And if you say, well, what about when they summon the dragon, right in the beginning of the story? It was nighttime, and therefore the sky did not have to go dark. This film shows the sky is bright outside, and therefore when they summon Shenron, it goes dark. I dug as deep as I could go, and there is no word if Toriyama had a hand in this, or if it was simply just the animation studio coming up with this, and then later Toriyama liked it, which in my recent thing I talked about with the Daima review and a few other things, I constantly talk about how over the years, Toriyama would be sometimes inspired by the anime. So he would be creating the manga at the same time, as the anime was coming out. The anime would do something he didn't do, and he'd be like, oh, that's not a bad idea, and writes it in. Meaning he was always open to like new ideas. He was not closed-minded to be like, the anime is its own thing, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. Case in point, Bardock. If you guys haven't watched my Bardock video, please watch it. It's really good. He did not create Bardock. So a lot of people have that, wait, but he's in the manga. Frieza and Vegeta had the whole manga. Yeah, that's because the anime TV special came out first, and therefore they created this whole idea of Bardock, his father, and all that stuff. And therefore he's like, okay, that's a pretty interesting idea. And he had the little tiny extra piece in the manga saying that this existed, that this happened, that Goku's father was Bardock and what he looked like, because he didn't design Bardock, the visual and everything to look like Goku. That was the animation studio did all that. And then, of course, we can move along to Brawly. He didn't create Brawly, but Brawly became a popular character, and he's like, hey, why not? He even said in like his interviews, but when the Brawly Brawly movie came out, he's like, I couldn't believe how popular this character was overseas. And he's like, therefore, sure, why not? I'll give him his own story that takes place into my Dragon Ball's world, I guess you could say, because he considers, anything he has a hand in is the real Dragon Ball, basically canon, I guess, if you want to use that word. And anything he has no hand in, he doesn't really consider his Dragon Ball. So this was another one of those times possibly where the idea of the dragon being summoned, turning the sky dark, would be something very important in Dragon Ball. Think about Planet Namek. The sky turns dark and people go, what's happening? Something's going on. Because of the sudden change, people knew something was going on. Later in the story, even the heroes, when the sky turned dark, someone's using the Dragon Balls, like they knew because of that. So it would become a very important piece in Dragon Ball history and in the lore is the sky turning dark when the dragon summoned. And it all started in this movie.
よい、もうよい。なんということだ。今まで食べた料理以上にうまいものしか喉を通らんとは。残りのドラゴンボールはどうした？
グルメス王様、お喜びください。ドラゴンボールの位置が確認できました。
そうか。
The film begins with the same narration, word for word, as in the manga and the TV anime, all done by the legendary narrator of Dragon Ball, Kaiosama himself, Joji Yanami. And it's just always nice to hear him narrating Dragon Ball. We meet our main antagonists. Now, the big difference with them, and I would say like the Pilaf crew, is the Pilaf crew, they're comedy. They're just fun, silly, goofy villains, and they always were. They've always have been. That's what's great about them. However, here, and a lot of the movies are going to do this, is we have very serious villains. They're enslaving an entire town. So they're clearly shown as just really bad people with no redeeming qualities. From here, we get, of course, Bulma meeting Goku for the first time. And it's pretty much the same scene with minor differences. First, most notably, is that Goku doesn't get naked and go fishing with his tail. He's actually just out and about and a fish attacks him, and then he attacks, kicks the fish and then keeps it with him. Instead of driving a truck, Bulma is riding a bike. Not just any bike. The movie does something else that's interesting. So if you watched my Bulma deep dive video, you'll know that the manga and the anime have a slight difference, is that in the manga, she does not hit Goku with her truck. She swerves out of the way and barely misses him. But in the anime, she bumps into him and knocks him down, thinking oh my God, I killed this kid. She does the same here. She hits him with her bike accidentally. So it's definitely slightly different from the manga here. Another big difference here is that in this movie, Goku gets angry and charges at her, which terrifies her and causes her to pull her gun out and start shooting at him. But in both the original manga and the anime, it's more that she just shoots at Goku, which is hysterical, So it's a slight little difference there, I feel. But now, most of the dialogue here is pretty much the same. Like I said, the scene pretty much plays out the same, except that we don't get our exposition of the Dragon Balls. Like we do learn in the manga, Bulma tells Goku the legend of the Dragon Balls, very simple. And then the anime version has more, it's Pilaf telling it, while at the same time Bulma's telling Goku, so we just get our exposition. Here, they don't do any of that. We don't get any backstory on the Dragon Balls here. Instead, it's actually Vango and Pasta show up and steal the 4-star Dragon Ball right from Goku's home. And this makes things go quicker. Bulma doesn't have to convince Goku to come with her, to say, let's go on an adventure together. Here, Goku already has a motive. They stole Ji-chan, they stole my 4-star Dragon Ball. Now I want to go get it. So they do a good job to make the story move faster, I feel. We get an entire chase scene here where Bulma, she pulls out a capsule, they go into a plane and they fire. Her maniacal laugh is just hysterical. But we do get a similar scene to when the pterodactyl comes down and takes her in the manga and the anime. And then Goku, of course, saves her by throwing Nyoibo and catches her. But she's so terrified hanging in the sky that she pees herself in both the movie and the original version as well. Now, as I mentioned, the film uses Pansy as this anchor to bring everybody together. She's on a quest to find the legendary Kame-Sennin in hopes that he will come back with her to defeat Gurumes. She unfortunately bumps into Oolong, and we basically get a very similar story beat here as in the manga and the anime. Oolong's trying to capture the girls, and Goku runs into Oolong, and therefore they have their confrontation. Same with him dipping his thumb into the hot soup. It's hysterical. Basically plays out mostly the same. Where things change is right from this moment where Goku meets Oolong. Oolong runs away when he realizes he can't beat Goku. They have a small little chase, and they immediately bump into Yamcha. Very interesting. So again, it's just that pacing is just really fast here. We meet Yamcha, and we get pretty much the same thing, where Yamcha decides to ambush them, and they have their little fight. Goku does get woozy from being hungry, but a big difference is, in the manga and the anime, the real version, I trust me on this one, Yamcha would have beaten Goku at this point. Not because he's stronger, Goku can kick his ass any day of the week, but because Goku lost all of his energy. He felt too hungry and he says, no, I can't do it, I'm too hungry. And then Yamcha's like, he's about to hit Goku when he sees Bulma and then freezes up. Here, Goku says he's hungry, Yamcha doesn't even move. Yamcha's just standing there, Bulma comes driving by, and then he has this funny moment where he freezes, falls off the cliff. After falling off the cliff, Puar comes over with turning into a mirror and shows that he lost a tooth just now. But in the manga and the anime, during the second fight with Goku is when he loses his tooth. We get a similar scene now where they're inside the mobile home, just like in the manga and the anime. You have Bulma with Oolong and Goku, and then even Yamcha spying on them where he learns about the Dragon Balls. It's all plays out, except of course, again, we have the Pansy character who's bringing this all together. She's there talking about, the Dragon Balls, Kame Sennin, and it's just tying everything together. She knows where Kame Sennin is. We don't even need Umigame, the sea turtle. We don't even need him to, like in the original manga, to bring Goku there. Instead, she's like, I know where he is. I want to go see Kame Sennin. So sure, we'll take you there. They then go to see Kame Sennin. Yamcha hides and, sneaks to follow them. Now, when we meet Kame Sennin, it's mostly the same, of course, except Yamcha's hiding. But Kame Sennin, immediately spots him, he senses that he's there. Yamcha pops out, sees Bulma. Bulma's just like, ooh, and then Yamcha runs away.
ま、やらんこともないが。ただし。パイパイつつかせてくれたらな。
先生、仙人様とあろうお方が何ということを。
いいじゃないか。仙人だってたまにはパイパイつつきたいわ。
均等に乗れないわけわかりましたよ。
After this, we get the Kinton, comes down, Goku takes it, and then she notices the Dragon Ball. However, instead of her doing her little flash thing that she does, it's the other scene that's taken after they, save Yumao's castle from the fire, that she basically told Oolong to turn into her and to flash her breast to Kame Sennin. And then, of course, he lets Kame Sennin go a little too far with Pafu Pafu. And that scene is exactly what they do here. She's like, I want that Dragon Ball. She tells Oolong, basically pretend to be me, blah, blah, blah. That whole scene plays out the same then, just like the other moment. Where things go a little different is the island is attacked by Vongo and Pasta. They attack to take more Dragon Balls, of course. Except they got completely destroy Kame House. It's like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Like, they completely obliterate Kame House, and he's all upset. He takes his shirt off, gets all buff, and he does the Kamehameha. So therefore, Goku sees him do it, and Goku's like, oh, I want to do that too. And same dialogue, oh, it took me 50 years. Goku does it right away, but not as powerful. So again, the writers of this do a wonderful job of how do you take so many important story beats and just cram them into 15 minutes? And I think they do a pretty damn good job. Of course, it does play out better in the manga, where the pacing's a little bit nicer. But for 50 minutes, they're just getting all those important things out there to move things faster, I guess you could say. And I think it's moving nicely. They basically, Kame-sen has this strange moment where he tells Pansy, you found some nice friends. You don't need my help. What? Goku and them are Goku's strong and all, but I don't know. You're way stronger than Goku at this point. Like, couldn't you just go there and easily defeat Gurume's and make this whole thing end quicker? And I just thought it was funny, It's obviously just a way for the writers to not use Kame-sennin because it wouldn't be as, it would be pretty anticlimactic if Kame-sennin just went there and kicked the crap out of Gurume's and Goku just watched. So I get why they had to do it. It just still, the reasoning didn't really make much sense, but. The final confrontation happens in a different way. So we don't have Yamcha following them to then say, hey, let me join you. But he, has a secret ulterior motive to take the wish at the last moment or to steal the Dragon Balls at the last moment. Instead, actually, they accidentally run into each other. You have Goku fighting Vanko at this point outside the castle. And then inside you have Bulma and Oolong and Yamcha Puar. They run into each other accidentally, which then causes them being chased by Pasta. They have no choice but to kind of work together. So it's an interesting way to get them to work together without Yamcha trying to deceive them. It's just they had no choice. Yamcha actually fights Pasta, and he's showing off that he is a martial artist. He legit can fight, but he accidentally touches her boob and therefore freezes up. So pretty funny. Following this, they all make it to Gurume's. And Gurume's, big towering blob. Goku fires a big Kamehameha, does nothing. Oh no, what can they do? Bulma's the actual kind of hero here. She notices inside of him the glow and the glow of the Dragon Ball. She throws the Dragon Ball into his mouth and she calls forth for Shenron to come, and it explodes, making us think that it possibly killed Gurume's. But Shenron comes out and we have both Bulma and Yamcha about to yell their wishes. Their same wishes they have that they want to make in the original story, which is, she wants a boyfriend, he wants to get over his fear of women. But before they can yell out, Pansy instead yells out and, to basically help her village. And Shenron does it. He helps it. Day is saved. The villains are defeated, not killed. So the first film starts out quite tame. As we go through the series, you will see, especially Goku has quite a bloodlust in these films later on. But yeah, they tend to just kill all the bad guys. Like even the side characters, like the lackeys, they kill everybody in these movies. But in the first movie, it's quite tame. And I think, the original Dragon Ball series was a little bit more tame at this point in the series anyway. So yeah, with that ending, my only personal grief with this ending is that instead of Pansy, maybe Goku or Bulma, somebody, like maybe one of them should have been more selfless and, got the wish for her. But it just feels like Pansy jumping in and taking the wish from them to do it for herself makes the heroes seem pretty useless, that she had to save her own village with the dragon when he's right there. And one of the heroes should have been like, you know what, that's what we should do. So I just feel that's a minor thing I would have preferred to see. But aside from that, everything kind of wraps up. Gurume's is shown not being dead. He's instead reduced to a normal size. And I like this because Pansy shows him mercy. She could easily just, have her village finish him off and kill him. No, she shows him mercy by giving him an apple because he was hungry. And then he's like, I don't understand. What is this? He's like, it's just a plain apple, nothing on it. And she's like, yeah. And it's just a really nice message, showing him the beauty in the, in the natural things in the world, that he doesn't need, he's a glutton, right? So he doesn't need everything, all the fancy things. There's so many beautiful things right there in front of him. And I just think there's a nice, beautiful message at the end of the movie, which is nice. After this, Goku basically gets on Kinto and heads out because he saw the Dragon Balls fly off. He wants to find his, 4-star Dragon Ball. Movie ends. It's pretty straightforward, the ending. So with that, I think that the movie wraps up nicely. Like I said, it does a great job of what it set out to do. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, it's an advertisement. It's a 50-minute advertisement to say, hey, watch our TV show. And I think it does a good job of that. It has similar story beats. It introduces us to all the main characters, and it gets everything rolling quite nicely. Is it a great masterpiece of cinema? No. Of course, none of the Dragon Ball films are. The original 13, Dragon Ball Z films, nor these first 3 Dragon Ball films. None of them, I would say, are like, oh my God, these are amazing films. But they all do the same thing. They give us some simple, quick entertainment while also slightly advertising Dragon Ball. What I like about this film is that it's a fun retelling of the first story. And while it's obviously not canon, I do like to think of it as setting the stage for what's to come. The first 16 films are not set in the main timeline, and therefore you could think of this as the start of an alternate timeline where the films take place. I feel this is one of the lesser known films abroad. So what about you? Have you seen this first Dragon Ball film? If so, how do you like it? What Dragon Ball film are you looking forward to in this series? How do you like the video intro I did for this series? I'm planning on doing video intros for all my series down the road as I take this channel to the next level. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. As always, like, subscribe, and share, and see you soon.